All right, welcome everyone to Life and Divinity. We are so excited you're joining us for this deep dive into Vipassana meditation.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us.
So we've got a ton of fascinating information to go through today. Really want to extract the most valuable insights, Whether you're just curious about meditation in general or you're actually thinking about trying Vipassana, we want to break it all down.
Absolutely. We're going to cover it all, starting from the very beginning, its ancient origins, going back thousands of years to India with Gautama the Buddha, and all the way to the latest neuroscience research that's showing just how powerful this practice can be for your brain.
Right. And we'll definitely talk about how it can actually benefit you, in your daily life.
Yeah.
Mental well-being, physical well-being, even how it can impact your relationships and the world around you.
That's right. So consider this like your cheat sheet to Vipassana. We'll cut through the noise and highlight what's really important.
And hopefully keep it fun and engaging along the way. Okay, so let's jump right in. Vipassana. This word, it sounds ancient, maybe even a little bit mysterious, but at its core, what is it really?
Well, Vipassana is really more than just a technique. It's more like a way of understanding yourself, understanding reality. One of the sources you sent over actually calls it a portal to self-discovery. And I really love that phrasing. It originated from the teachings of Gautama Buddha in India over 2,500 years ago.
Wow. Okay, so really going back to the source.
Absolutely.
Portal to self-discovery, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But the name itself, Vipassana, what does that actually mean?
So it comes from the Pali language.
Yeah.
And it translates pretty directly to see things as they really are. It's about seeing reality clearly without all the filters and judgments we usually put on things.
See things as they really are.
Yes.
I can already tell this is going to be a very mindful conversation.
Very mindful.
But this isn't just some new trend, right? Your research points to a really long, unbroken lineage.
That's right. It's been passed down through generations of teachers for centuries, really carefully preserved. And more recently, goenka played a really key role in making these 10-day intensive retreats available to a wider audience.
10 days?
Yeah.
Silent retreat?
Yeah.
That's a serious commitment.
It is.
But you mentioned this idea of mindfulness, and that's a word we hear everywhere these days. It's kind of become a buzzword, right? So how does that tie into Vipassana?
Well, Vipassana is, at its heart, a practice of mindfulness. It's about paying attention to the present moment with clarity and without judgment. And that non-judgmental part is really crucial. It's what sets it apart from some other types of meditation.
Right, because when I think of meditation, sometimes I picture myself focusing on a word or an image, trying to clear my mind completely.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. But with Vipassana, it's not about focusing on anything external. You're not using a mantra, you're not visualizing anything, you're not trying to force your mind to be quiet. Instead, you're gently turning your attention inwards. You're observing your thoughts, your emotions, your bodily sensations as they come and go. You're just witnessing the constant flow of your inner experience.
So how does it actually work? What do you actually do when you're practicing Vipassana?
Well, in terms of the actual practice, it's surprisingly simple. You find a comfortable seated posture, you bring your attention to your breath, and you observe. No need for rituals, special equipment, or anything like that.
Okay, so pretty accessible in that sense.
Very accessible.
And you mentioned the breath. I noticed something about Anapana in the research you sent. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so Anapana is often the starting point in Vipassana. It's the practice of focusing on your breath, specifically the sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. It's about sharpening your attention.
Like a focusing exercise.
Exactly. And this helps to calm and steady the mind, which is crucial for the deeper work of Vipassana.
Okay, so you've used the breath to settle the mind, kind of set the stage. What happens next?
That's where the body scan comes in.
Right, the body scan. Tell me about that.
So once you've developed some concentration through Anapana, you start to systematically move your attention through your body, one part at a time. And you're just observing any sensations that are present. Maybe it's tingling, warmth, pressure, tightness, even pain. You're just noticing it without judgment.
And that non-reactive observation, that seems to be a key principle here. Why is that so important?
Because that's where the real magic happens. It's about learning to witness these sensations without labeling them as good or bad, without trying to change them, without getting caught up in the stories our minds create around them. You're learning to see the impermanent nature of everything.
So it's not about achieving some blissful state or trying to escape from discomfort.
Not at all. It's actually the opposite. It's about facing reality as it is, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. By observing without reacting, you start to untangle yourself from those patterns of craving and aversion that cause so much suffering.
Which brings us to the Buddha's teachings. You mentioned that he talked about the root of suffering. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the Buddha taught that the fundamental cause of our suffering is our ignorance of how things really are. He put it to 3 specific characteristics. Impermanence, which is called anicca in Pali, the fact that everything is constantly changing.
Okay.
Then there's dukkha, which refers to the inherent unsatisfactoriness of life, the fact that everything is temporary and ultimately can't bring lasting happiness. And then there's anatta, the idea of non-self, meaning that there's no permanent, unchanging essence to who we are.
Wow, these are some pretty deep concepts.
They are, but Vipassana gives you a way to actually experience them directly. Through consistent practice, you start to see that all sensations, thoughts, emotions, they all arise and pass away. Nothing stays the same. You see the impermanence firsthand, and you realize that clinging to things that are constantly changing is what causes so much pain.
So it's not just about being present in the moment, it's about really understanding the nature of reality.
Exactly. And that deep understanding, that self-awareness, is what leads to emotional balance and inner peace.
I'm starting to see why this has been practiced for thousands of years.
It's a timeless wisdom.
Now, you mentioned that Vipassana is universal. It's not tied to any particular religion, right?
Right. It's a technique for training the mind, for purifying the mind. And anyone can benefit from it, regardless of their beliefs.
Okay, that's important to know. So we've talked about this ancient practice, but now let's shift gears and talk about what's happening in the brain when we do Vipassana. You mentioned some really interesting neuroscience research.
Yeah, this is where things get really exciting. In the past few decades, neuroscientists have been studying the meditating brain, and what they're finding is pretty incredible. It turns out that Vipassana doesn't just calm you down in the moment, it actually changes the structure and function of your brain over time.
Wait, rewiring the brain through meditation? That's a bold claim.
It is, but the evidence is there. There's this amazing researcher at Harvard, Sarah Lazar, who's done some groundbreaking work in this area.
What?
Her 2005 study found that long-term meditators, including Vipassana practitioners, had thicker gray matter in the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex, now remind me, what does that part of the brain do again?
It's like the CEO of your brain. It's responsible for all the higher level functions like attention, decision-making, emotional regulation. So by practicing Vipassana, you're essentially strengthening your brain's control center.
Interesting. So more gray matter there could mean better focus, more emotional control.
Exactly. And then in 2011, she did another study, and this one showed that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice, which included some Vipassana elements, led to an increase in gray matter in the hippocampus.
The hippocampus?
Yeah, that's the part of your brain that's crucial for learning and memory. And at the same time, they saw a decrease in gray matter in the amygdala, which is like your brain's fear center.
So less fear, more learning.
Exactly. It seems like even a short amount of practice can make a real difference.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. But it's not just about the size of these brain regions. It's also about how they communicate with each other. Another study, this one from 2018, found that Vipassana practitioners had increased gamma brainwave activity after a 10-day retreat.
Okay, gamma brainwaves, what are those all about?
Think of them as the brain's integration network. They help different parts of the brain communicate more efficiently, leading to a more unified, more aware experience.
So it's like the brain is becoming more interconnected, working together more smoothly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then there's this other fascinating study from 2019 that looked at something called response inhibition. They found that experienced Vipassana meditators were better able to pause before reacting impulsively.
Okay, response inhibition.
Yeah, it's basically the ability to hit the brakes before you do something you might regret.
That's a valuable skill.
It is. And it makes sense when you think about the core principle of non-reactive observation in Vipassana. You're training your brain to pause, to observe, rather than just jumping into action.
It's like you're rewiring your brain's automatic responses.
Exactly. And this all points to the incredible concept of neuroplasticity, the fact that your brain can actually change its structure and function throughout your life. Your experiences, including your mental practices, can literally reshape your brain.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. It means that you have the power to change your brain for the better. And Vipassana seems to be a very effective way to do just that.
Okay, so we've talked about how Vipassana affects the brain, but what about the real-world benefits? How does all of this translate into actual improvements in someone's life?
Right, that's the key question.
All right.
And the research is showing that Vipassana can have a really positive impact on both your mental and physical health.
Okay, let's start with mental health. What are some of the key benefits there?
Well, one of the most well-established benefits is a reduction in anxiety and stress. We already talked about how Vipassana can shrink the amygdala, that fear center in the brain. And that translates into less reactivity to stressful situations.
Makes sense. So you're less likely to get overwhelmed, less likely to panic.
Exactly. And there's a lot of research to support this. One study from 2013 found that mindfulness training, which included Vipassana, actually reduced the amygdala's response to emotional triggers. And another study from 2014 found that people who did a 10-day Vipassana retreat had significant reductions in anxiety and depression scores. And these improvements lasted for months after the retreat.
So it's not just a temporary fix, like a relaxation technique.
No, it's about cultivating a deeper sense of equanimity, a sense of peace that stays with you even when things get tough.
And it's not just about reducing negative emotions. I saw that Vipassana can also improve emotional intelligence.
That's right. A 2018 review of multiple studies found that Vipassana can boost your emotional intelligence in a few ways.
Okay, like how?
Well, for one thing, it improves your ability to regulate your emotions, to not get swept away by them. You learn to observe them, to understand them, but not be controlled by them.
That's huge.
It is. And it also improves your empathy, your ability to understand and share the feelings of others.
So it makes you more compassionate, more connected to others.
Exactly. And those are qualities that can really benefit every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. And stress management seems to be another major benefit.
Definitely. Chronic stress is a huge problem these days, and Vipassana can really help with that. A 2013 study found that people who practice Vipassana had lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, after a retreat. So it's like your body is learning to relax, to not be in constant fight or flight mode.
That makes sense. Now, what about physical health? I was surprised to learn that Vipassana can have benefits in that area as well.
Yeah, the mind-body connection is so powerful. And Vipassana seems to have a positive impact on several aspects of physical health.
Okay, like what?
Well, for one thing, it can improve your cardiovascular health. A study from 2016 found that Vipassana practitioners had lower blood pressure and better heart rate variability, which are both signs of a healthy heart.
That's good to know. And I saw that it can also help with sleep.
Yeah, that's another common benefit. A study from 2020 found that people who practiced Vipassana reported better sleep quality overall.
I can imagine with all that mental calmness, it would be easier to fall asleep.
Exactly. And it can even help with pain management.
Pain management?
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But a 2014 study found that Vipassana helped reduce pain perception in people with chronic low back pain.
Wow. How does that work?
It seems like it's not about numbing the pain, but about changing the way the brain processes pain signals. You learn to observe the pain without getting caught up in the suffering that usually comes with it.
Interesting. So it's about changing your relationship to the pain rather than trying to make it go away.
Right. And it's important to remember that all of these benefits, both mental and physical, they tend to grow with consistent practice.
So it's a journey, not a quick fix.
Exactly. It's about cultivating well-being over time.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits for individuals, but what about the bigger picture? Can Vipassana actually make a difference in the world?
That's a great question, and I think it absolutely can. The benefits of Vipassana ripple outwards. They don't just stay with the individual.
In what ways?
Well, for one thing, Vipassana can foster compassion and empathy. We already talked about how it can boost emotional intelligence, but there's also research on a specific type of meditation called loving kindness meditation, or metta, which is often practiced alongside Vipassana.
Better.
Yeah, it's about cultivating feelings of love and kindness towards yourself and others.
Okay.
And studies have shown that practicing metta can actually make people more helpful and compassionate in their daily lives.
So it's like training your mind to be kinder.
Right. And that kindness then extends outwards to the people around you.
I like that. And what about empathy specifically?
A 2018 study found that Vipassana practitioners scored higher in measures of perspective taking, which is a key component of empathy. And remember Sarah Lazar's research? Well, she also found that the temporoparietal junction, a part of the brain that's involved in empathy, tends to get thicker with meditation practice.
So you're literally strengthening the part of your brain that allows you to understand others.
Pretty amazing, right?
It is. Now, you mentioned something about Vipassana being used in prisons.
Yes, there's actually a really inspiring story about that. Back in 2000, they introduced Vipassana meditation into Tihar jail in Delhi, India.
Okay.
And the results were incredible. They saw a significant reduction in aggression among the inmates and a noticeable improvement in their overall well-being.
So it even works in a high-stress environment like that.
Yeah, which suggests that it has the potential to make a real difference in all sorts of challenging situations.
And these changes seem to be lasting, not just temporary.
That's right. A 2015 study found that people who had done Vipassana courses reported higher levels of self-kindness and mindfulness 6 months later.
So it's not just a quick fix, it's about real, lasting transformation.
Exactly. And there's also an interesting historical example of this. During colonial rule in Myanmar, monks played a key role in reviving Vipassana practice. It was a way for them to preserve their cultural heritage and foster unity and resilience within the community.
So it was a source of strength in a difficult time.
Yes, and I think that's still relevant today.
Definitely. So from personal well-being to social harmony, Vipassana seems to have a lot to offer. Now, for someone listening who's curious about trying it, what are some practical steps they can take?
Well, the great thing about Vipassana is that you can start very simply. Just set aside a few minutes each day, find a quiet spot, and sit comfortably. Close your eyes and focus on your breath.
What we talked about with Anapana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just notice the sensation of the breath as it comes and goes. And when your mind wanders, which it inevitably will, just gently bring it back to the breath.
And once you've gotten the hang of that, you can start exploring the body scan.
Right. Start moving your attention through your body, observing any sensations that are present. The key is to just observe without judgment, without trying to change anything.
And if you're looking for a more immersive experience, you mentioned those 10-day silent retreats.
Yes, those are an incredible opportunity to really dive deep into the practice. You're surrounded by other people who are doing the same thing, and there's a lot of support and guidance from experienced teachers.
Now, those retreats, they're offered through Goenka's organization, right?
Yes, and they're actually offered for free. The whole thing is run on donations, so it's accessible to anyone who's interested. You can find all the information you need on their website, dhamma.org.
Okay, great. And for those who aren't ready for a 10-day retreat just yet, are there other resources available?
Absolutely. There are tons of guided meditations available online and on apps.
And like we mentioned, even just a few minutes of practice each day can make a difference.
Right. The most important thing is to be patient and consistent.
Yeah, like with anything worthwhile, it takes time and effort.
Exactly. But the rewards are well worth it.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the history, the science, the benefits, and the potential of Vipassana meditation.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And I hope it's inspired some of you listening to give it a try.
Me too.
And if you want to learn more about Vipassana or any other spiritual practices, be sure to check out our website.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this one.
So as we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Think about a situation in your life that's been challenging you lately, maybe a conflict or a difficult emotion.
Okay.
Now imagine approaching that situation with the same non-reactive awareness that we've been talking about today. Just observe your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations without judgment, without trying to change anything. What do you notice? What insights emerge? What new possibilities open up?
That's a powerful question.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we can all benefit from exploring.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.